Rachel Miller saw the body fall behind the school gym at exactly 6:17 p.m. The snow had just begun to cover the cracked asphalt of St. Agnes Elementary, softening the ugly edges of the parking lot, hiding oil stains, cigarette butts, and the footprints of men who were never supposed to be there. She had stayed late to finish grading essays. That was what ordinary women did before their lives were torn open. They graded essays. They washed coffee mugs in empty teacher lounges. They checked classroom windows twice because the city was getting worse, and because children trusted them to notice danger before danger noticed them. Rachel had just locked her classroom when she heard voices behind the gym. Low voices. Male voices. One of them calm enough to make the winter air feel colder. She should have kept walking. Instead, she moved toward the side exit and looked through the narrow glass panel. 3 black SUVs idled in the staff parking lot with their headlights off. Snow gathered on the hoods. A man in a charcoal overcoat stood near the chain-link fence, surrounded by men who seemed to breathe only when he allowed it. Even from a distance, Rachel could feel the command in his stillness. Matteo Russo. She knew his face because everyone in Philadelphia knew his face, even if they pretended not to. He was never on the news for the reasons people whispered about him. Officially, he owned hotels, restaurants, import companies, construction firms, and a private foundation that donated to hospitals after every public scandal. Unofficially, mothers lowered their voices when his black cars rolled past. Police officers looked away. Politicians smiled too hard beside him at charity dinners. Rachel had seen him once before at a school fundraiser, standing in the back of the auditorium like a beautiful threat in a tailored black suit. That night, the principal had told everyone he was a generous donor. Rachel had watched every adult in the room clap with fear in their hands. Now he stood behind her school, facing a man in a federal jacket. The federal agent was holding a brown envelope. Rachel pressed one trembling hand against the door. She could not hear every word, only pieces carried by wind and snow. "Your name is in the file," the agent said. Matteo did not move. "And hers?" he asked. The agent looked toward the school. Rachel froze. "She doesn't know anything," the agent said. She saw enough. Then another man stepped out from behind one of the SUVs. His face was bruised. His hands were tied. He tried to speak, but one of Matteo's men shoved him to his knees. Rachel's breath caught. Matteo looked down at him for a long moment. He said something Rachel could not hear. Then the man collapsed. No scream. No dramatic sound. Just a sudden drop of weight. Into snow. Rachel stumbled backward, her shoulder hitting the metal locker beside the door. The sound echoed through the empty hallway. Outside, Matteo's head turned. Not quickly. Not with panic. Slowly, as if he had known she was there all along. His eyes found the narrow window. Found her. Rachel could not move. For 3 seconds, they stared at each other through glass and snow and the terrible distance between her ordinary life and his violent one. Then Matteo Russo lifted one hand. Not to threaten, not to summon his men, to tell her to stay still. That terrified her more than if he had shouted. Rachel ran. She grabbed her coat, her purse, and the small canvas bag filled with student journals. She slipped through the front entrance of the school, nearly falling on the icy steps, and did not stop until she reached the main road. Her phone shook in her hand as she called 911. By midnight, she was sitting under fluorescent lights in a federal office, wrapped in a scratchy gray blanket, telling the same story for the 4th time. A man from the FBI sat across from her. Special Agent Victor Hale. He had kind eyes, a wedding ring, and the controlled patience of someone used to frightened witnesses. He told Rachel she was brave. He told her Matteo Russo had been under investigation for years. He told her what she saw could finally put him away. Rachel kept seeing the way Matteo looked at her through the school door. Not surprised. Not angry. Almost sad. "Will he come after me?" she asked. Agent Hale folded his hands. "We won't let that happen." Rachel wanted to believe him. She had built her life around believing systems could protect people if good people were brave enough to tell the truth. She taught her students that honesty mattered. That rules mattered. That you did the right thing even when your voice shook. So when Agent Hale placed the witness statement in front of her, Rachel signed it. When he told her she would testify the next morning, Rachel nodded. When he offered witness protection, she said she would think about it after court, because she had 26 students who expected her back on Monday. Agent Hale watched her with something unreadable in his face. "You're a good person, Miss Miller," he said softly. "That's rare in cases like this." Rachel walked home through heavy snow with 2 federal agents trailing behind her in an unmarked sedan. She did not sleep. By 2:13 a.m., Philadelphia had disappeared beneath white silence. Rachel sat on the floor of her apartment with her back against the couch, holding a mug of tea gone cold. The city outside her window looked unreal. Streetlights glowing behind curtains of snow, parked cars buried to their mirrors. The world softened enough to make danger feel imaginary. Then someone knocked on her door. Not hard. Not loud. 3 calm knocks. Rachel stopped breathing. Her phone was on the coffee table. Her hand reached for it slowly. The knock came again. Rachel. His voice moved through the wood like smoke. She stood so quickly the mug tipped over, spilling tea across the rug. No one had told Matteo Russo where she lived. No one was supposed to know. Her fingers hovered over the emergency call button. "Do not call Hale," Matteo said from the hallway. "If you do, you will be dead before sunrise." Rachel's body went cold. She grabbed the kitchen knife from the counter and approached the door. Her peephole was dark. Covered. "Move away from my door," she said, proud that her voice did not break. "A pause." Then Matteo replied, calm as falling snow. "I came without a gun. Without guards. Without witnesses. Open the door, and I will show you why." Rachel almost laughed. It came out as a broken breath. "You think I'm stupid?" "No," he said. "That is why I am here." Something about the answer unsettled her. Rachel stepped closer. "If you wanted to kill me, you wouldn't knock." "No." "If you wanted to scare me, you wouldn't come alone." "No." "Then what do you want?" The silence after her question was heavier than any threat. "To keep my promise," Matteo said. Rachel's hand tightened around the knife. "What promise?" "Open the door." She should have refused. She should have called the agents downstairs. She should have trusted the FBI. Instead, she opened the door because some instinct older than logic told her the most dangerous man in Philadelphia was not the danger outside her apartment tonight. Matteo Russo stood in the hallway under a flickering ceiling light. Snow dusted the shoulders of his black overcoat. His dark hair was damp. His face was severe, carved in shadows and restraint. The kind of beauty that did not soften a man but sharpened him. He held a plain cardboard box in both hands. No weapon. No smile. No apology. Rachel lifted the knife between them. He looked at it, then back at her. "If I intended to hurt you," he said quietly, "that would not save you." Her fear turned briefly into anger. "And if I scream? The men watching your building will come upstairs." "The FBI?" Matteo's jaw tightened. The men pretending to be FBI. Rachel stared at him. He stepped into her apartment only after she moved back. That detail made her hate him less for half a second. And she hated herself for noticing. He set the box on her dining table. Rachel kept the knife raised. Matteo opened the box. Inside were files, photographs, bank statements, school donation records, printouts of wire transfers, security stills from St. Agnes Elementary, pictures of Agent Victor Hale entering a restaurant through a back door, pictures of Rachel's principal receiving a black envelope from a man Rachel had seen at the parking lot exchange. Then Matteo placed one final photograph on top. Rachel's stomach dropped. It showed her classroom, taken from outside the window, her desk, her bookshelves, the paper snowflakes her students had hung from the ceiling, her red scarf draped over the chair. And on the back of the photo, written in black ink, were 3 words. "After she testifies." Rachel lowered the knife an inch. "What is this?" "A death order." Her pulse roared in her ears. "No." "Yes." "No," Agent Hale said. "Hale is the one who signed it." Rachel looked at the photograph again. Her classroom seemed suddenly violated, no longer a place of safety, but a stage someone had already prepared for her ending. Matteo watched her face change. She hated that he noticed everything. "The man you saw in the parking lot was not murdered," he said. "He was already dying when they brought him to me, poisoned. He had 5 minutes left, maybe less. I was trying to find out who sent him." Rachel shook her head. "I saw him fall. You saw what Hale needed you to see. You expect me to believe the FBI is framing you? I expect you to believe your own fear. It kept you alive tonight." Rachel's eyes filled, but she refused to let the tears fall. "Why would they use my school?" "Because no one questions money sent to children." The words hit like a slap. Matteo moved around the table, pulling out records one by one. Donations to St. Agnes from shell charities. Construction invoices for repairs that never happened. Food program grants redirected through fake vendors. A luxury hotel purchase hidden beneath education contracts. Rachel saw her principal's signature. She saw Agent Hale's. She saw the name Russo listed as the target on a sealed indictment. And then she saw her own name, Rachel Miller, witness asset. Beside it, in red ink, expendable after testimony. The room tilted. Matteo was beside her before she realized her knees had weakened. He did not touch her. He stopped just close enough that she could feel the cold still clinging to his coat. Almost touching, but not. That restraint frightened her more than force. "Sit down," he said. "Don't tell me what to do." The corner of his mouth moved, almost not enough to be a smile. "There she is." Rachel looked up sharply. "What?" "The woman who signed a statement against me even while shaking. You're mocking me." "No." His voice lowered. "I am admiring you against my better judgment." The words slid between them, intimate and impossible. Rachel stepped back. "You don't get to admire me. You don't get to show up with a box of horror and act like you're saving me." Matteo's eyes darkened. "I'm not acting." "Then tell me why. Why do you care if I live?" For the first time, he looked away. That was when Rachel understood there was something in the box he had not shown her. Matteo closed the folder. "We need to leave." "No." "Rachel, you don't get to use my name like you know me. I know you hate black coffee, but drink it when you grade late. I know you keep spare mittens for children who forget theirs. I know you walk home instead of taking cabs because you send half your paycheck to your father's old nursing home. I know you pretend not to be lonely because being needed is easier than admitting you want someone to stay." Rachel went still. The air between them changed, not because of what he knew, because of how he said it. Like every fact had cost him something. Her voice came out thin. "How long have you been watching me?" Matteo's silence answered before he did. "Long enough." The knife trembled in Rachel's hand. "That's not protection, that's obsession." His gaze returned to hers. At first it was protection. And now? He did not answer. A sound came from outside. A car door closing. Matteo's head turned toward the window. The calm in him vanished into something colder. He crossed the room, looked through the curtain, and then moved with such sudden precision that Rachel's fear spiked all over again. "Get your coat." "What?" "They are here." Rachel looked out. 2 black sedans had pulled to the curb below. Men in dark jackets stepped into the snow. One of them looked up at her window. "Agent Hale." Rachel's phone began to ring. His name flashed on the screen. Matteo looked at it, then at her. "Answer it." Rachel swallowed and hit speaker. "Miss Miller," Hale said warmly. "Are you safe?" She looked at Matteo. He shook his head once. Rachel forced her voice steady. "Yes. Good. We need to move your testimony up. My agents are coming to escort you now." Matteo leaned close enough that his breath brushed her ear. "Ask why." Rachel closed her eyes. "Why?" A small pause. The judge agreed to an emergency hearing. Matteo's expression hardened. Rachel whispered, "At 3 in the morning?" Hale's silence lasted 1 second too long. Then his voice changed. "Rachel, who is with you?" Matteo took the phone from her hand. "Hello, Victor." The line went dead. For one breath, the apartment was silent. Then the first bullet shattered the window. Rachel screamed as glass exploded inward. Matteo pulled her down before she could fall, his body covering hers as the lamp burst behind them. The apartment filled with snow, wind, and the violent crack of gunfire from the street. "Stay low," Matteo said, voice calm against her hair. Rachel clutched his coat. He drew a gun from somewhere beneath his overcoat. "You said you came without a gun," she gasped. "I lied." He fired twice toward the window. Not wildly. Not dramatically. With controlled precision that made Rachel understand exactly why men feared him. Then he dragged her toward the hallway. "My bag," she cried. "No. My students' journals." "Rachel." She turned. For the first time, anger broke through his control. "You can replace paper. I cannot replace you." The words struck her harder than the bullets. He pulled her through the door. In the hallway, a man lunged from the stairwell. Matteo moved before Rachel saw the weapon. The man hit the wall and collapsed, groaning. Matteo did not pause. They ran down the back stairs. Rachel slipped on the icy landing. Matteo caught her against him, one arm around her waist. For one suspended second, her hands pressed against his chest, and she felt his heartbeat. Fast, not afraid, furious. His eyes dropped to her mouth. Then he released her like the moment burned. "Move." They burst into the alley behind her building. Snow fell hard enough to erase the city. A black SUV waited with the back door open. Rachel stopped. "No." Matteo turned. "Get in." You expect me to climb into a mafia boss's car after my apartment just got shot up? I expect you to survive. I don't know what you are. He stepped closer, blocking the wind. I am the man they want you to condemn in court. That's not an answer. His eyes searched hers. No, it is the safest truth I can give you. Gunfire cracked behind them. Rachel flinched. Matteo shoved her into the SUV and climbed in after her. The vehicle lurched forward before the door fully closed, tires sliding over snow. Rachel pressed herself against the far side of the seat, breathing hard. Matteo spoke into a phone in Italian, his voice low and lethal. Outside, Philadelphia blurred into streaks of white and red. Sirens wailed somewhere behind them. When he ended the call, Rachel stared at him. You really are at war. I've been at war since I was 22, and now I'm in it. His gaze moved over her face, stopping on a small cut near her eyebrow from the glass. His hand lifted. Rachel stiffened. Matteo stopped an inch from touching her. May I? The question was so unexpected that it unsettled her more than any command. Rachel nodded once. He brushed a speck of glass from her skin with his thumb. The touch was brief, careful, almost reverent. Then he pulled back and looked out the window. I tried to keep you out of it. Something in his voice made her ask, why me? His jaw flexed. You ask too many questions. I teach 3rd grade. Questions are my specialty. A faint ghost of amusement crossed his face and disappeared. The SUV turned onto a bridge. Below, the Schuylkill River was black beneath the snow. Rachel wrapped her arms around herself. Where are you taking me? A safe house. Yours? Yes. So not safe. Matteo looked at her. Safer than the FBI. Rachel hated that she was beginning to believe him. The safe house was not a house. It was an old stone estate hidden beyond a gated road outside the city, surrounded by snow-covered trees and security cameras tucked beneath the eaves. Black SUVs lined the drive. Men stood in silence under the porch lights. But when Matteo stepped out, every single one lowered their eyes. Rachel saw fear, not respect. Fear. He opened her door. She stayed seated. What happens if I refuse? Matteo leaned down. I carry you inside, and you hate me for it. You wouldn't. His eyes held hers. I would. Rachel climbed out on her own. Inside, the estate smelled of cedar, smoke, and old money. A fire burned in the stone fireplace. The windows were covered. The walls held paintings of stormy coasts and ruined churches. It was beautiful in the way lonely things were beautiful. A woman with silver hair approached from the hallway. Matteo, she said, her eyes moving to Rachel. Is this her? Rachel stiffened. Matteo's voice turned cold. Not now, Bianca. The woman's expression softened with something like pity. Of course. Rachel looked between them. Who is she? My aunt. Do I need to be afraid of her too? Bianca almost smiled. Only if you break his heart. The room went silent. Matteo's face became unreadable. Rachel's cheeks warmed despite everything. I'm not here to break anything, she said. Bianca's gaze sharpened. No one ever is. Matteo led Rachel upstairs to a bedroom larger than her entire apartment. There was a fireplace, a balcony buried in snow, fresh clothes folded on the bed, and a lock on the inside of the door. Rachel noticed that last part. Matteo noticed her noticing. You can lock it. Against you? Against anyone. She walked to the window. Beyond the glass, armed men moved through the snow. This is insane, she whispered. Yes. You say that like it's normal. For me, it is. Rachel turned. I'm supposed to testify in 6 hours. No, you don't decide that. Matteo stepped closer. I decide whether you live long enough to regret it. Her anger sparked again. You don't own my choices. No, he said. But I will stand between your choices and the men trying to use them to bury you. Rachel stared at him. She wanted to hate him. It would have been cleaner, easier. He was criminal power, wrapped in elegance, violence delivered in a calm voice, the kind of man mothers warned daughters about without needing his name. But he had walked into her apartment alone. He had shown her evidence. He had shielded her when glass broke. And now he stood in a room that was clearly prepared for her. As if some part of his life had been waiting for this disaster to finally arrive. She asked the question that scared her most. Were you watching me tonight? Matteo looked toward the fire. Yes. From outside my apartment? Yes. How many nights? Silence. Rachel's voice sharpened. How many? Since the fundraiser. Her breath caught. That was 3 months ago. I know. That's sick. His eyes returned to hers, dark and steady. Yes. She had not expected agreement. It stole the force from her anger. Matteo moved to the door. Sleep if you can. Don't walk away. He stopped. Rachel hated the tremor in her voice. You know everything about me. My work. My apartment. My family. My coffee. My fears. And I know nothing about you. Except what people whisper. That is safer. For who? He did not answer. Rachel stepped closer. Did you kill that man? Matteo's face hardened. No. Have you killed men? Yes. The honesty landed heavily between them. Would you kill for me? He looked at her for so long that her pulse changed. Then he said, I already have. He left before she could breathe. Rachel locked the door. Then she sat on the edge of the bed and finally cried. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just silent tears spilling down her face as the life she understood collapsed around her. At dawn, she woke to the sound of voices below. She had slept in her clothes, curled under a blanket that smelled faintly of cedar. For one disoriented second, she thought the storm had been a nightmare. Then she saw the folded clothes, the locked door, the armed men through the window. Rachel washed her face, put on a cream sweater and dark jeans she had not chosen, and went downstairs. The estate was alive with quiet tension. Men moved in and out of rooms with phones pressed to their ears. Bianca stood near the fireplace, reading a tablet. Matteo was at the dining table with several men around him, a map of Philadelphia spread beneath his hand. He looked up the moment Rachel entered. Every man at the table turned. Their eyes moved over her, assessing. Matteo's voice cut through the room. Look at the map. Every gaze dropped instantly. Rachel's stomach tightened. Power like that should have repulsed her. It did. But it also told some frightened part of her that no one in this house would touch her without permission. That frightened her too. Bianca handed her coffee. Black with too much sugar. Rachel stared at it. Apparently everyone knows everything about me. Bianca's smile was small. Only the important things. Rachel looked at Matteo. He said nothing. On the table, Rachel recognized a photo of St. Agnes Elementary. Her school looked small and innocent, beneath surveillance markings. What are you doing? She asked. Matteo folded the map. Finding out who inside the school helped Hale. Rachel stiffened. My principal? Among others. No. Dr. Alden has worked there for 15 years. He knows every child's name. Matteo looked at her with a quietness that felt almost cruel. Men can remember children's names and still steal from them. Rachel's face burned. She did not want that sentence to be true. A phone rang. One of Matteo's men answered, listened, then looked at him. The court issued a warrant for her arrest. Failure to appear. They're calling her a flight risk. Rachel's coffee slipped in her hand. Matteo caught it before it fell. His fingers closed briefly over hers around the cup. Warm. Steady. Then he released her. Rachel whispered, They're making me look guilty. Hale is making you look unstable. The television mounted above the fireplace switched on. A local news anchor appeared, standing outside the federal courthouse in snow. Breaking this morning, Rachel Miller, a Philadelphia elementary school teacher and key witness in the Russo crime investigation, has disappeared hours before her scheduled testimony. Rachel stepped closer, horrified. Her school photo appeared on screen. Then Matteo's. Sources suggest Miller may have been intimidated, or possibly turned by organized crime figures overnight. Rachel shook her head. No. The screen changed to footage of her apartment building. Broken glass, police tape, neighbors watching from behind doors. Then Agent Hale appeared at a podium. We are deeply concerned for Miss Miller's safety, he said, his face solemn. We believe Matteo Russo may be holding her against her will. Rachel turned slowly toward Matteo. He watched the screen without expression, but one hand had closed into a fist. Is he wrong? She asked. Matteo looked at her. Are you here against your will? Rachel opened her mouth. No answer came easily. She had not chosen this house. She had not chosen him. But she had seen Hale's men fire into her apartment. She had seen the files. She had heard the lie on television. I don't know, she said. Pain moved through Matteo's face, so quickly she almost missed it. Then the mask returned. Fair enough. That hurt more than she expected. By afternoon, Rachel understood the shape of the trap. If she returned to the FBI, Hale would control her testimony or kill her. If she stayed with Matteo, The world would believe she had been compromised by the mafia boss she was supposed to condemn. If she ran alone, both sides would hunt her. She stood in the estate library while snow hit the windows like thrown salt. Matteo entered without knocking, holding another folder. "You were right," he said. Rachel frowned. "About what?" "Dr. Alden knows every child's name." He handed her the file. Inside were photos of her principal with Agent Hale, but also with a woman Rachel did not recognize. Elegant, dark-haired, standing beside a private car outside a hotel. "Who is she?" "Valentina Corrado." Rachel had heard that name in whispers on the news. "The Corrado family?" Matteo nodded. "They control parts of South Jersey and the port routes Hale uses to move money. Dr. Alden has been laundering through school contracts for 2 years. Rachel flipped through the pages, sickened. "And the children? We're never supposed to know." "That doesn't make it better." "No." Rachel looked up. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you trust evidence more than men." She almost smiled despite herself. "That's the first intelligent thing you've said." Matteo's eyes softened for less than a heartbeat. Then he placed one more photograph on the table. Rachel stopped breathing. It was a picture of a little boy standing outside St. Agnes in a navy coat, holding a lunchbox, maybe 7 years old, brown hair, serious eyes. She recognized him. "Evan," she whispered, one of her quietest students. Brilliant, polite, always waiting alone after school until a black car picked him up. Rachel looked at Matteo. "Why do you have a photo of my student?" Matteo's face changed. Everything in him went still. "Because Evan is my nephew." The words emptied the room. Rachel gripped the table. "What?" "My brother's son." "Your brother?" "Luca Russo. He died 6 years ago." Rachel remembered Evan's school records. Guardian listed as an aunt. No father on file. Evan's last name is Cole. "To hide him." Rachel stepped back. "From who?" "Everyone." "From you?" Matteo's jaw tightened. At first, Rachel looked at the photo again. Evan's solemn little face blurred through her sudden tears. "Why is he at St. Agnes?" "Because your principal accepted money to place him there. Because Hale knew who he was. Because the Corrados want him." "Why?" Matteo's voice dropped. "Luca left his share of our family holdings to his son. Whoever controls Evan controls 1/3 of the Russo empire." Rachel's chest tightened. This was no longer abstract crime, hidden money, men in suits. This was a child in her classroom who loved astronomy and drew moons in the margins of math worksheets. A child who trusted her. "Is even in danger?" Matteo hesitated. That hesitation terrified her. "Where is he?" Rachel demanded. "Hidden." "Where?" "Safe." "No, you don't get to use that word after everything." Her voice broke. "He is 7. Matteo's eyes flashed. "I know exactly how old he is." "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because you would have gone to Hale to protect him." Rachel fell silent. "Because he was right. And that was what made it unforgivable." "You used me." "No. You watched me because of Evan." At first, she repeated bitterly. "There it is again." Matteo stepped closer. "I watched the school because of Evan. I watched you because you were the only adult who noticed when he stopped speaking in class. You were the only one who asked why he flinched when cars idled outside. You were the only one who stood in front of Dr. Alden and refused to let him transfer Evan out of your room." Rachel remembered that meeting. Dr. Alden had said Evan needed a more disciplined environment. Rachel had refused. She had argued for him for 40 minutes. She had gone home angry and cried in the shower because no one seemed to care what happened to one quiet boy. Matteo's voice roughened. "You protected him before you knew his name mattered." Rachel's anger faltered. "I protected him because he was a child." "I know." The way he said it made the air shift. Admiration. Pain. Something dangerously close to need. Rachel turned away first. "Don't look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like I'm becoming something to you." Matteo said nothing. That was answer enough. The next 2 days were a slow burn of snow, secrets, and locked rooms. Rachel learned Matteo's world in fragments. His men did not laugh around him. They did not waste words. They obeyed with the tense devotion of people who had seen what happened when loyalty failed. He took calls at all hours, speaking English, Italian, sometimes Russian, his voice always controlled. But there were cracks. He never sat with his back to a door. He drank espresso untouched until it went cold. He checked the security cameras outside Rachel's bedroom 3 times a night. And every morning, he left a printed update about Evan, under her door. Not a message, not an apology, Proof. Evan is safe. Avon slept. Evan asked for his blue notebook. Rachel hated how much those notes mattered. On the third night, the storm worsened. The power flickered. The estate switched to generator light. Rachel found Matteo in the kitchen at midnight. Sleeves rolled to his forearms, washing blood from a split knuckle under the faucet. She stopped in the doorway. He glanced up. You should be asleep. You say that like I'm your responsibility. You are. I'm not. No, he said quietly. You are not. She moved closer despite herself. What happened to your hand? Business. That's a word men use when they want women to stop asking questions. His mouth twitched. And does it work? Not on teachers. She took a towel from the counter. He watched her approach but did not move. Rachel held out her hand. Let me see. No. Matteo. It was the first time she had said his name without anger. His eyes changed. He gave her his hand. Rachel cleaned the cut carefully. His skin was warm. His fingers were powerful, scarred, still beneath her touch. She could feel him watching her face, not her hands. You shouldn't do that, he said. What? Touch me like I am not what I am. Rachel looked up. What are you? His answer was immediate. Dangerous. I know. And still? She wrapped the towel around his knuckles. Still. The silence stretched. He was close enough that she could see the faint shadow beneath his eyes, the exhaustion he kept hidden from everyone else. For once, the feared man looked less like a king, and more like someone standing at the edge of something he did not know how to survive. His uninjured hand lifted toward her face. Rachel did not move. His fingers hovered near her cheek. Then his phone rang. The moment broke. Matteo stepped back, coldness snapping over him again. He answered. His expression changed. Rachel knew before he spoke. What happened? Matteo ended the call. Hale found Evan's location. Rachel's blood turned to ice. How? Matteo looked toward the dark window. Someone inside this house told him. The betrayal detonated silently. Within minutes, the estate became a war room. Doors locked. Men were searched. Phones confiscated. Bianca stood pale by the fireplace while Matteo's lieutenants argued in low voices. Rachel watched Matteo become terrifying. Not loud, not uncontrolled. Worse, absolutely calm. He questioned each man alone in the study. No one came out looking the same. Rachel waited in the hallway, arms wrapped around herself, until Bianca approached. You should not watch this. Rachel's voice was flat. One of them sold out a child. Yes. Then I want to see who can live with that. Bianca studied air. You understand him more than you want to. Rachel looked away. No, I understand children. That is worse. The study door opened. A young man stepped out, shaking. Behind him, Matteo stood in shadow. His eyes found Rachel's. Bianca, he said. Take her upstairs. Rachel's stomach dropped. Who was it? Matteo did not answer. Tell me. Bianca touched her arm. Rachel. Rachel pulled away. Tell me. Matteo walked toward her slowly. His face was carved from restraint, but his eyes were burning. My cousin. Rachel whispered. Why? Money. Fear. Valentina Corrado offered both. And Evan? Still safe. For now. For now? His silence was unbearable. Rachel stepped closer. What are we going to do? We are not doing anything. There it was again. Control. Protection sharpened into command. Rachel's fear snapped into fury. You don't get to lock me in a room while a child from my classroom is hunted. I do if the alternative is you getting killed. I am not one of your possessions. No, Matteo said, voice rising for the first time. You are the one thing I cannot lose. The hallway went silent. Bianca lowered her eyes and disappeared into another room. Rachel stood frozen. Matteo looked as if the words had torn themselves out of him without permission. His face hardened immediately. Forget I said that. No. Rachel. No. Her voice trembled. You don't get to say something like that and bury it. He stepped closer. You want truth? Fine. I think about you when I should be planning how to win a war. I hear your voice in rooms where men are lying to me. I watched you stand in front of a boy who was not yours and defend him like the world would end if you stepped aside. I have spent years becoming the kind of man no one could touch, and 3 months of watching you has made me afraid of a classroom teacher with ink on her fingers. Rachel's breath caught. Matteo looked almost angry at himself. That is not romance. It is not soft. It is not safe. It is a weakness. And men in my world kill weaknesses. Rachel whispered, Is that what I am? His eyes lowered to her mouth. No. His hand lifted again. This time, he touched her cheek. Barely. A controlled, trembling contact. You are the first thing in years that has made me want to be more than feared. Rachel closed her eyes. For a second, she leaned into him. Then a loud crash sounded downstairs. Men shouted. Glass shattered. The estate alarm screamed. Matteo pulled Rachel behind him as red emergency lights flooded the hallway. Stay behind me. This time, she did. The attack came through the west wing. Corrado men in black tactical gear breached the estate under cover of the storm. Gunfire cracked through the halls. Matteo moved Rachel through hidden passages behind the walls. His hand locked around hers. She could hear men fighting below. Bianca shouting orders with the authority of someone who had survived too many wars. At the end of a narrow passage, Matteo opened a hidden door into the garage. A black SUV waited. But before they reached it, a man stepped from behind a concrete pillar. Agent Hale. He held a gun. Rachel stopped. Matteo moved in front of her. Hale smiled sadly. Miss Miller, you have no idea how much trouble you've caused. Rachel's hand tightened around Matteo's coat. You used me. I protected the case. You shot into my apartment. Hale Sahil. Technically, my men did. Matteo's voice was deadly soft. Where's the boy? Hale's smile faded. Still pretending this is about family? You disappoint me, Matteo. It is always about family. No. It's about control. Your brother understood that. Your father understood that. You're the one who keeps confusing grief with morality. Rachel saw Matteo go still. Hale looked at her. Did he tell you about his brother? About Luca Russo, the sainted dead man? Did he tell you Luca was an informant? That he came to me begging to get his son out before Matteo's family turned him into another prince of blood? Rachel looked at Matteo. His face gave nothing away. Hale continued. Matteo killed his own brother's chance at freedom. Now he plays guardian angel. That's enough, Matteo said. Rachel's voice shook. Is it true? Matteo did not look at her. That hurt. Hale smiled. There it is, the doubt. Matteo stepped forward. Hale raised the gun. Careful. Rachel moved before thinking. She stepped out from behind Matteo. Rachel, Matteo warned. But she kept her eyes on Hale. You wanted me alive for testimony, then dead after. Why? Because the public needed a clean story. Matteo Russo kills witness after she testifies, Rachel said slowly. The FBI takes him down. You become a hero. The Corrados take his roots. Evan disappears. Hale's expression changed just enough. Rachel felt the truth land. You weren't building a case, she whispered. You were staging a transfer of power. Hale's face hardened. You should have stayed a teacher. I am a teacher. She lifted her chin. That's why I know when a man is explaining too much, because he's afraid of the answer. Hale's hand tightened on the gun. Matteo moved. It happened fast. A shot cracked against concrete. Matteo shoved Rachel down, crossed the distance, and slammed Hale against the SUV. The gun skidded away. Rachel crawled toward it, heart pounding. Hale struck Matteo's injured hand. Matteo barely reacted. His calm broke only when Hale gasped, Valentina has the boy by now. Matteo froze. Hale smiled through blood at his lip. She offered you a trade. You for Evan. But now I think she'll take the teacher too. Matteo's control snapped. Not into chaos. Into something colder than human. Rachel had seen angry men before. She had seen violence in city corners, heard parents scream, watched fear enter children's bodies before they even understood it. This was different. This was a king becoming executioner. Matteo, she said. Her voice stopped him. He turned slightly, breathing hard. Rachel stood, holding Hale's gun with both hands, pointing it at the floor because she could not point it at a person. Evan, she said. We have to get Evan. For one heartbeat, Matteo looked at her as if she had pulled him back from a cliff. Then he released Hale. His men dragged the agent away. Matteo crossed to Rachel and gently took the gun from her shaking hands. You were brave. I was terrified. Yes, he said. That is what makes it brave. They left before dawn, not in a convoy. Too visible. Matteo drove himself through the snow in a stolen gray sedan. Rachel beside him, Bianca in the back seat with a laptop and a pistol on her lap. The city emerged slowly from the storm, its skyline dark against a bruised morning sky. Valentina Corrado had chosen the place with theatrical cruelty. St. Agnes Elementary. Rachel's school. They want the exchange there because Hale already framed it as the center of the case. Bianca said from the back. Cameras nearby. Police scanners compromised. If Matteo walks in, they can claim he came to retrieve the witness and eliminate the child. Rachel looked at Matteo. And if you don't walk in? F&Ds. Rachel closed her eyes. The word was too sharp. No. Matteo's hands tightened on the wheel. It will not happen. You can't promise that. He looked at her briefly. I can promise what I will become if it does. The car fell silent. Rachel realized something then. Matteo's obsession was not only romantic, it was not only about her. It was about every person he had failed to save, being reborn inside this one impossible fight. His brother. Evan. Maybe even himself. And now somehow, her. They parked 3 blocks from St. Agnes. Snow covered the playground. The swings moved slightly in the wind. The school looked painfully innocent, its windows glowing faintly from security lights inside. Rachel's throat tightened. Her students would return after the weekend expecting multiplication games and spelling lists and the tiny rituals that made the world feel safe. They had no idea monsters had been using their school as a bank. Matteo adjusted his coat. Rachel grabbed his arm. Don't go in like you don't care whether you come out. His eyes moved to her hand on his sleeve. I do care. Then act like it. His gaze lifted. You make demands of dangerous men very easily. You keep calling yourself dangerous like it excuses you from being human. Something flickered in him. Rachel softened despite her fear. Come back. His expression changed. A near confession moved between them, fragile and unfinished. Then Bianca said quietly, We're out of time. They entered through the side door Rachel used every morning. Inside, the hallways were dark. Children's artwork lined the walls, snowmen, paper mittens, crooked stars. Matteo's face tightened as he passed them. Rachel wondered if he was imagining Evan's small hands making one of those drawings. A voice echoed from the gym. Matteo Russo. Always dramatic. Valentina Corrado stood at center court beneath the dim emergency lights, dressed in a white coat that made her look like part of the snowstorm outside. Beside her stood Dr. Alden, Rachel's principal, pale and sweating. And behind them, sitting on a folding chair with his hands zip-tied in front of him, was Evan. Rachel's heart broke. He looked up. Miss Miller? She stepped forward. Matteo's arm shot out, stopping her. Evan's eyes moved to him. For a moment, the boy's expression shifted. Recognition. Matteo saw it too. The feared Mafia boss looked at his nephew like the world had narrowed to one small, frightened child. Valentina smiled. How touching. The teacher, the uncle, and the heir. Rachel's eyes filled. Dr. Alden would not look at her. How could you? She whispered. He flinched. You don't understand. They would have shut down the school. You sold children. I kept the doors open. You used them. Valentina laughed softly. Teachers. Always so moral with money they do not have. Matteo's voice cut through the gym. Let the boy go. Valentina looked at him. You know the price. Me. And the files. Bianca stiffened beside Rachel. Matteo reached inside his coat and removed a drive. Rachel stared at him. No. He was giving up everything. The evidence. His protection. His leverage. For Evan. For her. Hale's words from the garage returned. She offered you a trade. You for Evan. Rachel understood the twist too late. Matteo had known this would end with him walking into a cage. Matteo, she whispered. He did not look at her. Because if he did, he might not survive the choice. Valentina's men moved in from both sides of the gym. Matteo placed the drive on the floor and slid it across. Release him first. Valentina nodded. One guard cut Evan's zip ties. The boy ran. Rachel rushed forward and caught him, wrapping him in her arms. Evan trembled against her. You're okay, she whispered. I've got you. But over his shoulder, she saw Valentina's guard raise a gun toward Matteo. No. The gym doors burst open before the shot could fire. Black-clad men flooded in from the rear entrance. Not Corrado men. Russo men. Bianca exhaled. Matteo's eyes moved to her. She smiled faintly. You think I would let you sacrifice yourself without making other arrangements? Chaos erupted. Rachel pulled Evan behind the bleachers as men shouted and gunfire thundered through the gym. Matteo moved through the violence with terrifying focus, taking down attackers, shielding paths, controlling the room like he had been born inside war. But Valentina did not run toward an exit. She ran toward Rachel. Rachel saw the blade in her hand. She shoved Evan behind her. Valentina grabbed Rachel by the hair and pulled her backward before Rachel could scream. Cold metal touched her throat. The gym froze. Matteo turned. Every part of him stopped. Valentina smiled against Rachel's ear. "There he is," she whispered. "The weakness." Matteo's gun lowered. Rachel's breath shook. "Don't," she said. Valentina tightened her grip. "Drop it, Matteo." He did. The gun hit the floor. Rachel stared at him, horrified. The most feared man in Philadelphia had surrendered in front of everyone because a blade touched her skin. Valentina's voice turned sweet. "On your knees." Matteo slowly lowered himself to the gym floor. Rachel's chest broke open. This was the thumbnail moment no one could look away from. A mafia boss kneeling beneath children's artwork, surrounded by enemies, his eyes locked on one teacher like she was the only country he had ever belonged to. Valentina smiled. Pathetic. Matteo's gaze never left Rachel. "No," he said calmly. "Human." Rachel moved. Not much, just enough. She drove her heel into Valentina's foot and slammed her elbow back, exactly as Matteo had once shown her in the hallway, during a tense moment she had pretended not to remember. Valentina stumbled. Matteo rose like a storm. It ended in seconds. When Valentina hit the floor, breathing hard and surrounded by Russo men, Matteo did not look at her. He went to Rachel. His hands hovered over her shoulders, her face, her throat, afraid to touch, afraid not to. "Rachel." "I'm okay." His eyes searched her for injury, with a desperation that stripped him bare. "You're bleeding." "It's nothing." "It is not nothing." She caught his wrist. "Matteo." He stilled. Evan appeared beside them, small and pale. "Are you my uncle?" The question broke something in Matteo that no bullet had reached. He lowered himself to Evan's height. For once, the powerful man had no performance left. "Yes." Evan studied him. "My dad had your eyes." Matteo closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, they were wet. "Yes," he said, voice rough. "He did." Rachel looked away to give him privacy. But Matteo reached for her hand without looking, as if he needed her there to survive tenderness. She let him hold it. The scandal broke before noon. Bianca released everything. The school laundering records. Hale's bank transfers. Dr. Alden's signatures. Valentina Corrado's communications. The forged witness plan. The death order, with Rachel's name. By evening, Agent Hale was in custody. Dr. Alden had disappeared, but was found at a private airstrip before midnight. Valentina's empire cracked publicly for the first time in decades. And Rachel Miller became the teacher who survived both the FBI and the Mafia. The news loved that phrase. Rachel hated it. She spent 2 days in a private hospital wing under Russo protection. Mostly because Matteo insisted, and partly because she had stopped having the energy to argue. The cut on her throat was shallow. The bruise on her shoulder was not. The exhaustion went deeper than either. Matteo visited only once. He stood at the foot of her hospital bed in a black coat, looking like a man who had no right to enter rooms where healing happened. Rachel watched him. "You're avoiding me." "Yes. At least you're honest." "Only with you." That made her heart ache. He looked toward the window, where snow fell over the city. "Evan is safe. Bianca is arranging guardianship options that do not involve my world." "Good. The school board is removing the entire administration. Your job will be waiting when you want it." Rachel studied him. "And you?" His face closed. "I will make sure no one comes near you again." "That's not what I asked." Matteo's gaze returned to her. For a moment, the room held everything they had not said. The apartment, the safe house. His hand beneath hers at the sink. His confession in the hallway. His knees on the gym floor. Then he stepped back. "You were right about me." Rachel frowned. "When?" "When you said protection can become a cage." Her throat tightened. He placed something on the table beside her bed. A small silver key. "What is that?" "The safe house. It is yours if you want it. Sell it. Burn it. Keep it. I transferred ownership this morning." Rachel stared at him. "You can't just give me a house." "I can. That's not the point." "I know." His voice was quiet. "I destroyed your life to save it. I cannot undo that. But I can give you a place no one controls. Not even me." Rachel swallowed. "And then what?" He looked at her as if the answer hurt. "Then I leave you free." The words should have felt like relief. Instead, they felt like snow filling her lungs. Matteo turned to go. Rachel spoke before pride could stop her. "You're still doing it." He paused at the door. "Doing what?" "Making decisions for me." His shoulders went still. Rachel sat up despite the ache. "You decided I needed protection." Then you decided I needed truth. Then you decided I needed distance. You never once considered that maybe I'm strong enough to decide what I want after knowing exactly who you are. Matteo slowly turned back. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were not. And what do you want? Rachel's voice trembled. I want time. I want honesty. I want Evan safe. I want my school clean. I want to stop being afraid every time a car idles outside my window. She took a breath. And I want you to stop punishing me for making you feel something. Matteo looked shattered in the quietest possible way. I'm not good for you. Maybe not. His jaw tightened. You deserve a man who does not bring war to your door. I deserve a man who lets me choose whether I open it. Silence. Then Matteo crossed the room. Slowly, as if approaching her too quickly would break the fragile thing between them. He stopped beside the bed. Rachel looked up at him. For once, he did not hover. He touched her cheek with the backs of his fingers, careful of the bruise near her jaw. I do not know how to love without trying to stand between you and the whole world, he said. Then learn. His eyes searched hers. And if I fail, I'll tell you. A breath moved through him, almost a laugh, almost grief. You would. I'm a teacher. His thumb brushed her cheek. And I am a very difficult student. The worst. He leaned closer, stopped, still asking without words. Rachel lifted her hand to his coat and pulled him the final inch. Their kiss was not soft at first. It was restrained for only 1 second before everything they had survived rushed through it. Fear, snow, gunfire, betrayal, the horrible tenderness of almost losing what neither had admitted wanting. Matteo kissed her like a man who had spent years learning control and had finally found the one place control could not save him. Then he pulled back first, forehead resting against hers. I will not own you, he whispered. No, Rachel said. You won't. I will protect you. I know. I will probably do it badly sometimes. You will. His mouth curved faintly. And you will correct me? Constantly. For the first time, Rachel heard him laugh. Quiet. Broken. Real. 3 months later, St. Agnes reopened under a new name. The Miller Learning Center. Rachel had argued against it, loudly. But the parents had voted, the children had cheered, and Matteo had stood silently in the back of the community meeting with a face that revealed nothing and eyes that revealed too much. The building looked different now. Fresh paint, new windows, real heating, a library with enough books for every child to take one home, a playground rebuilt without anyone stealing from the budget, no hidden bank accounts, no fake vendors, no men in suits using children as cover. Rachel returned to her classroom on a snowy Monday morning. The children hugged her with the violent affection of small people who did not yet know how much adults feared being needed. Evan sat at the front with his blue notebook, quieter than before, but smiling when Rachel placed a star sticker on his math page. At 3 o'clock, as buses pulled away and snow began falling again, Rachel looked out the front windows. A black SUV waited across the street. For 1 second, her old fear returned. Then the back door opened. Matteo stepped out. No entourage, no visible guards. Just him in a black coat, snow settling in his hair, holding a paper bag from the bakery near her apartment. Rachel walked outside. You're late, she said. He glanced at his watch. By 2 minutes. I'm a teacher, we count everything. His eyes warmed. I brought apology pastries. That assumes I forgive you. I brought 6. She took the bag. Smart men. They stood beneath the school awning, while snow softened the city around them. Across the playground, Evan climbed into Bianca's car, safe and laughing at something she said. Rachel watched him until the car pulled away. Matteo watched Rachel. You did this, he said. She shook her head. We did. No. I know how to destroy things. You knew what was worth rebuilding. I know how to destroy things. Rachel looked at him. He still looked dangerous. He always would. The city still feared him. Men still lowered their voices when he entered rooms. Power still followed him like a shadow, but when he looked at Rachel, there was no performance. Only devotion. He was still learning not to turn into a cage. His hand moved toward hers. Stopped. Asked. Rachel smiled and took it. They walked down the snowy steps together. At the curb, Matteo opened the SUV door, then paused. There is one more thing. Rachel narrowed her eyes. That sentence usually means trouble. It might. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded document. Rachel opened it. A deed. Not to the safe house. To a small, abandoned bookstore 2 blocks from the school. The one Rachel had once mentioned wanting to turn into an after-school reading center. back when she thought no one had been listening. Her eyes filled. "Matteo, I did not buy it for you," he said quickly. She raised an eyebrow. He corrected himself. "I bought it so you could decide what happens to it." "That's dangerously close to buying it for me. I am improving slowly." Rachel laughed through her tears. He looked almost undone by the sound. She stepped closer. "You listened. I always listen to you." The confession was quiet, but it warmed something deep in her chest. Behind them, the school lights glowed gold against the falling snow. The city moved around them, still wounded, still dangerous, but no longer swallowing her whole. Rachel looked at the Mafia boss who had refused to let her testify, refused to let her die, refused to become soft too quickly, and somehow learned that love was not possession. It was standing at the door, waiting for her to open it. She rose on her toes and kissed him beneath the snow. This time, Matteo did not hesitate. His arms came around her with careful strength, holding her like a vow he was still afraid to speak too loudly. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. "Where to, Miss Miller?" Rachel looked at the school, then the waiting SUV, then the deed in her hand. "The bookstore," she said. Matteo's eyes softened. "Of course." He helped her into the car. As they drove through snowy Philadelphia, past courthouse steps, "Glow in, better self, better lean back and let herself breathe. Better self breathe." Beside her, Matteo Russo took her hand in the dark. Not to claim it, not to control it, just to hold it. And for the first time since the night she saw a man fall behind the school gym, Rachel did not pull away. Outside, black SUVs followed at a distance. Inside, the most feared man in Philadelphia sat silently beside the teacher who had ruined his control, saved his nephew, exposed his enemies, and taught him the one lesson no empire had ever given him: that love was not weakness. It was the only thing powerful enough to make a monster choose to become human. And somewhere ahead, through the snow, the lights of the old bookstore waited.